Hello, receiving students and Sevenis. Thank you. Take your seat. Now, receiving students and Sevenis, before we go into our today's lesson, we will correct the exercise that we did in our previous lesson, which we did not mark. So, receiving students and Sevenis, I would like you to look at the exercise that we did in our previous lesson. We will quickly answer the questions, the two exercises, and then go to our today's lesson. So now, receiving students and Sevenis, our exercise from the previous lesson is on using compass direction chart. 1. Find how many degrees in a clockwise 10. We have A, northeast to southeast, B, north to southwest, and C, east to west. And exercise 2, find how many degrees in an anti-clockwise 10. A, from west to southwest, B, from east to northwest, and C, from southeast to north. Now, Sevenis and receiving students, this is what we are going to do. Receiving teacher, you have to select 6 students to come up on the board and write the answer. So we will have 6 students from model class to write the answer. Can I have 6 volunteers to quickly write the answers on the board? We have Jubilee, Shannon, and our friend there, Michaeline, Agnes, and Madeline. Okay? Shannon, 1A. Receiving students, I hope you are doing the same thing. Can I use this one? Okay, receiving students and Sevenis, I hope you have written your answers on the whiteboard. Now we have our model class answers or model students answers, which is also on the whiteboard. We will go together and correct the answers. Okay, let's confirm the answers which are on the whiteboard. 1A. 1A. Find how many degrees in a clockwise 10 from northeast to southeast. So, receiving students and Sevenis, this is northeast. We move clockwise 10. Left or right? Okay, clockwise is always right. So, from north, east to southeast. How many degrees is that? 90 degrees. So, is our answer correct? 1A. Okay, 90 degrees is correct. Let us go to second one. 1B. 1B, clockwise 10, north to southwest. North to southwest. To here. From north, starting from north, we go clockwise direction all the way to southwest. So, how many degrees is that? Okay, let's confirm the answer from the compass direction chart. From north to east, how many degrees is that? From east to south, north to south, how many degrees? 180. So, if this is from north to south is 180, now from south to southwest, how many degrees is that? 45. So, north to south, 180, and south to South to southeast is 45. So we have our answer there, which is 225 degrees. Okay, this answer is correct. Now let's look at C. East to west, clockwise. So from east to west. How many degrees is that? 180 degrees, yes. Okay. 1C is 180 degrees, receiving students. Now let us look at exercise 2. How many degrees in and anti-clockwise? This time we are going what direction? Opposite direction, which is left. So anti-clockwise 10 is always left. Now A, 45 degrees, west to southwest. So which is west? We are starting from west and then moving to southwest. So how many degrees is that, class? 45 degrees. Okay. Our answer A is correct, 45 degrees. B, east to northwest. Receiving students in 7 is, where are we starting? Where is our starting point? East. We go what direction? Left or right? Left. Left is anti-clockwise. So left direction or anti-clockwise direction to what direction or point? Northwest. So this is northwest. From east we go anti-clockwise direction to northwest. So how many degrees is that? Okay, it is 135. From east to north is 90 degrees. Okay, north to northwest is another 45 degrees, which is 135 degrees. So our B answer is 135 degrees, receiving students in 7. Now let us look at the last question or last exercise, which is southeast to north or southeast to north. Our starting point is where? Where is our starting point? Southeast. Southeast, and we move anti-clockwise to north. How many degrees is that? 135 degrees. It's still 135 degrees. So our answer for 2C is 135 degrees. Now receiving students and 7 is, those are the answers for the exercise that we did in our previous lesson. If you did not get them correct, please make corrections on the exercise that you have made mistake on. Huh? Now, the receiving students and 7 is, we will move on to our today's lesson. Class, what is our today's lesson topic? Okay, our lesson topic for today is on true bearings. Now, before we go into our activity or main activity, let us define what true bearings are or bearings. Now, I have some definitions or concepts or knowledge that you should know about bearings. Now, the first one is the definition of bearing or the meaning of bearing. Class, on the screen I have the meaning of bearing, which is in the square there, or rectangle, sorry, not square, but in the rectangle. Receiving students in 7 is, I would like you to read the definition of bearing. 1, 2. Okay, that is the meaning of bearing. What is bearing? Bearing is a direction angle. It is a direction angle and it shows the direction of one point to another. Okay? Now, with bearings, when we talk about bearings, there are two things that we must know about bearing. Two important things that you must know about bearings. And one is, bearings are always written as numbers, number of degrees, using 3 digits. Bearings are written as number of degrees using 3 digits. Now, I have given you examples. There are two examples there. When you want to write bearings as numbers of degree, first example, as you can see from the screen, is 0 to 0. But we read that bearing as 20 degrees. 20 degrees. The way to write it is on the screen. Okay? Or if there are 3 digits given, you write it as 245 degrees. Okay, that's an example there. 245 degrees. So those are examples of how to write bearing as degree, as number of degrees. Another important thing that you must know about bearing is that bearings are measured from north in a clockwise direction. Always measured from north in a clockwise direction. That's another important thing that you must know about bearings. We don't measure bearings anti-clockwise. We measure bearings clockwise direction, always starting from north. Receiving students in 70s, please remember that. So those are the two important things that you must know about bearings. One, bearing is written as number of degrees using 3 digits. And 2, bearing is measured in clockwise direction starting from north, or always starting from north. So 2 important things that you must know. On the whiteboard, I have 2 work examples which I will go through with you, receiving students in 70s, in order for you to understand bearings, or how to write bearings and how to measure bearings. Now, let us look at example A. Example A, here I have a bearing, work example A here. Now, let us look at the angle size. Angle size from north to this point here. What is the name of this point given, receiving students? Okay, this point is point A. Now, what is the angle size from point A to north? It is 60 degrees. You can see. From point A to north, the angle size is 60 degrees. Now, to read the bearing, what did I just explain to you before we came to the work example? How do we measure bearings? Okay. We measure bearings from north in a anti-clockwise or clockwise direction? Clockwise direction. So, in this example, to measure bearing, we start from north and then clockwise, measure clockwise direction to this point. From north to point A is the bearing that we are trying to find. From this north to point A, we are trying to find the bearing. What is the bearing of this point here? From north to point A. Now, to measure bearing, bearing is always correspond to the angle which is from north to the point A. Okay, this is north. And bearing is always measured from the point, angle which is from north to point A. So in this case, the bearing of this point A is, can someone tell me, receiving students in 7 is? What is the bearing of that point A? Ruthie?
60
degrees. Can you write that on the board? Pronouncing it is different from writing it. So let's see. She has said 60 degrees. Now let's see how she is going to write that bearing. Remember, bearing is written in 3 digits. Yes? precise. Receiving students and 7s, let's give Ruthie 3 big claps. Okay, Ruthie, excellent. Now, you see, this is the bearing of point A. Remember, this is how we write the bearing, using 3 digits. Bearing is always written using 3 digits. Now, to identify bearing, we measure from north to the bearing or north to point A. The bearing is always correspond to the angle which is from north to point A. So that's how we measure bearing. Now let us look at another example. Example B, receiving students and 7s. We have another example here. Let's see if we can measure the bearing of this point A here. Now class, if you can see, this is point A, and we are trying to measure the bearing from north to this point A here. Now, from south to point A, what is the angle size given? What is the angle size from south to point A?
20 degrees.
Okay, you can see from the whiteboard which is written here. From south to point A is 20 degrees. We are trying to find a bearing from north to point A. So bearing is from here all the way down to point A. What is the bearing? I'll give you a hint, receiving students. In our previous lesson, in our previous lesson, in summary point, I made a point on degrees of the directions. North has a degree of measurement which is 0 to 360 degrees. East has 90 degrees, or the degree of measurement for east direction is 90 degrees. Let's have Jubilee.
$160 degrees.
160 degrees. Jubilee, how did you get that 160 degrees? Would you like to give a try, receiving students? One of our model students, Jubilee, has given the answer 160 degrees. Now, I would like to ask him to come in or to explain how he got 160 degrees.
180 take away.
180.
Take away 20 degrees.
Take away 20 degrees, which is 160 degrees. Okay. Now, receiving students, I'll further explain on what Jubilee has said. Now, from north to south,
180.
how many degrees?
180.
180. We are only interested from north to point A, the bearing. We are trying to find the bearing from north to point A. So, to find the bearing from north to point A, we subtract 20 degrees, which is south to point A, from 180 to get the bearing for north to point A. Okay? So this is how you do. To find the bearing from north to point A, in such example like this, if in this case it is 180 degrees, so we are subtracting from 180 degrees. And the bearing for this point is 160 degrees. Do we leave it as it like this, or we add 0 like this? Which of this is correct? Okay. We leave it as it is. This is not correct, okay? Remember, bearings is always written in 3 digits. So receiving students and 70s, the bearings for exercise A is 160 degrees. Now we move on to our learning activity. Receiving students and 70s, I have a learning activity for you. I would like you to do the learning activity either in pairs or in threes. The learning activity is, what is the bearing of point A? What is the bearing of point A? Okay, receiving students and 70s, let us look at the answer to our learning activity. Now, what is the bearing for point A. Receiving students in 70s. Isaac?
10 degrees.
Can you write the answer on the board? Okay. Let's say one more. Receiving students, you can give your answers on, write your answers on the board. Okay, Emmanuel. Okay. Glenda. Okay. Okay, Shannon. Last one from Shannon. Okay, receiving students and 70s, I hope you have written your answers on the board, receiving students. Now let us look at the answer for the learning activity here. Now this is point A. And we are trying to find the bearing from north all the way to point A. Okay? Receiving students and 70s. Now the angle size from west to point A is how many degrees? 10 degrees. Or from point A to west is 10 degrees. Now using this information, we are going to find a bearing of point A. And to measure bearing, we always measure from north in a clockwise direction. This direction. Now, from north to east, how many degrees is that? From east to south, from north to south, how many degrees is that? Now, from north to west, how many degrees is that? It is 270 degrees. From north clockwise 10 to west is 270 degrees. Now our bearing, our point here, point A is here. It's just above west. So from west to point A is how many degrees is that? 10 degrees. So plus 10. Now class, receiving students and 70s, what is the bearing for point A? Okay, it is 280 degrees. This time here we are plusing. Okay? In one of the examples, in work example, we minused. So I have shown you 3 different examples. 2 in a work example and 1 in the learning activity. So the bearing for point A is 280 degrees. We are measuring from north all the way to this point here. Now we know that from north to west is 270 degrees. Plus, from west to point A is 10 degrees. So the bearing of point A will be 280 degrees, which is from north all the way to point A. Now receiving students in 70s. That's the only learning activity that I have for you. We will move on to our exercise. Okay, we have 3 exercises or 3 exercises on the board. We have A and B, which is on the screen. Refer to your students' workbook, page 38. 38, exercise 1 to exercise 1, A to C. students, we will now look at the answers to the exercise. I'm pretty sure that most of you have completed the 3 exercises which I have given. Okay, let's have some answers on the board. Receiving students, you can go up to the board and write the answers to 3 exercises. Annie, Darrell, I'll give it to John. John, Annie, A, Darrell, B, and John, C. Small letter, small letter, small letter, small letters, small letter T. Okay, let us look at the answers, 3 answers. Exercise A, receiving students. The model class have the answers on the board. For A, they have written the bearing for exercise A is, or point A for exercise A is 25 degrees true. Okay, you can have it as 25 degrees. So the bearing is 25 degrees. That's how to write the bearing using 3 digits. B, the bearing for B, point A is 168 degrees. 168 degrees. And C, 291 degrees. Receiving students and 70s, do you agree with this answer? Okay, this answer is correct. 291 degrees. So receiving students, if you did not have those answers, please correct your answers, which is on the board, the correct answers given on the board by the model class. Now receiving students and 70s, to sum up our today's lesson, remember that bearing is a direction angle and shows the direction of one point to another point. 2 important things that you must remember when you are dealing with bearing, receiving students and 70s. Bearings are always written as number of degrees using 3 digits. 3 digits. And second important thing that you must know about bearing is that bearing is always measured from not in a clockwise direction. So remember those 2 important points about bearing. Now receiving students and 70s, our key phrase for today is true bearings. And our next lesson topic is on compass bearings. Okay, compass bearings. Recapping exercise, receiving students and 70s, you have to find the true bearing for that point A. Make note of that recapping exercise that is going to be given in the next lesson before you start the lesson on compass bearing. With that, receiving students and 70s, our lesson has come to the end, and thank you very much for your participation.